welcome back, everyone. And here's a big virtual hug. So glad you're here. And for those of you who have been with us, a lot of people do this with us as part of a practice, just as we do. So thank you for staying here and adding your heart and soul energy to this field that we create when we practice together. And for those who've never been here, thanks for being here. And we get together, as you probably know, and we select a track each week from the treasure chest of WeAwake technologies, and we do it together because God said we're supposed to do this through Vanessa. So we said, okay, God, through Vanessa. Oh, was it your idea? Okay, sorry. God said it through Pam. Oh, well, but if you do good and you don't care who gets the credit, the wise people say that's where to go. But anyway, like it was Pam. Yeah. So anyway, we're gonna do PMP, or Profound Meditation Program, Tier 2, Track 3, and these have kind of been the just been the mothership or something for PMP. It's like 17 tracks, and they're really good. You could practice with these tracks, a lifetime, and they go from just delta to deeper delta, and they have subtle energy and all kinds of things. Anyway, they work. That's the main thing. And one that I've always liked is the last track in Tier 2, which gets you ready for Tier 3, which is really heavy, but it just gets you into the zone, the meditative zone, pretty quickly. And I'll share something. Andrew Harvey, you look him up. I think he's probably a PhD or something from Oxford. He's a Brit. He's a gay Brit, and he's an amazing mystic and scholar. And if you get a chance, he's doing stuff. Go check him out. But he had this list that he wrote, and it says basically why we're screwed. All the things that caused by human beings that we're doing to ourselves. But he said then he listed the reason to have hope in all this, and the one that really stuck in my mind was God has an agenda. Higher power has a higher purpose for us, we little versions of his or herself, or his and herself, I should say, and everything in between. So yeah, that's really good. And you can, when you begin to, Carl Jung said, when you begin to get into the center of your being, things start happening on the outside. Things like you can actually start seeing spirit or God's hand working in the world, and it's like, wow, okay. And sometimes we forget, sometimes we lose awareness of that, but God is always present. Yeah. And all you have to do is go outside and look at a tree and just meditate on a tree, and pretty soon I think you'll get it. That in itself is a miracle. We're surrounded by miracles, and it's all sacred. So I guess, and I have something I want to share after we finish. It's a 20-minute meditation that was an experience I had of God's hand working in my life. And I think it has some very powerful lessons for what we're going through, and hope that eventually we'll be okay, ultimately. So with that as our warm up, let's assume the position. Meditating. Everybody says it's important, so it must be, and I found it too. Meditating like that, it's not so great. So get your spine as straight as you can, and just kind of scan your body when this starts, and just release all the tension, the shoulders, back, and legs, your gut, feet, whole thing, and your tongue. Yeah, relax your tongue and jaw. That's a powerful one. Relax your eyes. So, okay, so we're going to start this, and I guess the request would be, God, help us to see you're working in our lives more consciously, with more awareness. Open our eyes so we can see. That's it. So let's go. Well, welcome back, everyone. That was 20 minutes. It felt like 10 minutes max. That's the way things are. Uh, Einstein had a good point when he said time is relative, and altered states in meditation teaches that all the time. So this morning when I was meditating, getting ready to meditate, right? Anyway, this came to me, and as you may or may not know, I've been very supportive, involved in supporting Ukrainian people and their fight for freedom and their fight for existence. And I wrote a song, a couple of songs. You can see the one on YouTube. It's called Ukraine, ! by John Dupuy. It's a great song. It has an amazing video created by a young Ukrainian girl to accompany the lyrics. Truly, truly powerful experience. But there's another one that I haven't released yet. It's called Look at This Picture. And I'm speaking to Putin, or maybe to the Russian soul in this song, and it just came out. In some ways, I feel responsible. In some ways, it feels like there's something else is going on. And the last two verses, let's see what I said. And Putin claims to be a Christian, a devout Christian. I've seen videos of him being baptized, and and they sprinkle holy water on the troops before they go fight and stuff like that. One religion, right? Russian Orthodox. So I'm saying this to Putin. I said, go into a church and clear your head. Talk to the man who's hanging dead. Ask him what he thinks you should do. He says, love your neighbors the way I love you. And the last verse is, there's only one way this can end. There's only one way, Vladimir, to wash away your sins, to destroy your enemies. To destroy your enemies, you must make them your friends. And there it is. And we're not there yet. Okay, the war is still going on. They're still trying to destroy Ukraine, and they still keep targeting civilians. Almost nightly, they send rockets to blow up things in Kiev to try to beat them into submission to Putin's vision. And we're not there yet, but we can get there. And if you look at Europe and the history of Europe, I mean, for thousands of years, they were just duking it out, fighting. The Romans fighting the Germanic tribes, and the Muslims invading from South Africa, France fighting England fighting France invading Spain, on and on, just this constant 100 years war, 30-year war. And that's not there anymore. I think there's very few Frenchmen who fear an invasion by Germany at this point. Okay. And I don't think Spain is worried about France invading them, et cetera, which shows a tremendous amount of evolution and growth and hope for the future. I'm not saying that this can be done overnight, because there's a lot of blood being spilled over there, innocent people dying, and karma, as thick as uranium core or something. I mean, it's really thick. But when I was praying and meditating before we got started, there's a section of my book that came to me, and it's called Integral Recovery. And I said, I was attending a dinner that followed a salon on Insight and Chaos in Berlin. It was on this magnificent street, Unter den Linden, very, very famous place. And there were all these top people in industry and education and the arts. And how I got there, God knows. But there I was. And I was sitting at a table with a German man. a very accomplished PhD and a co-chairman of a large foundation in Germany. During our conversation, he commented that he was from Dresden, a city that had been firebombed by the Allied and British forces in World War II. And Dresden was located in former East Germany, and it was the most beautiful city, all this medieval architecture. It was just a jewel of a city, and the Allied forces firebombed it. And that means they would bomb in a great big square with incendiary bombs, and then the heat would come in and it would just rise. And people that jumped in the river were boiled in the river. I mean, it was just horrendous. More people died than Nagasaki, Hiroshima, those things. It was really horrible. And it was not a strategic reason to do it. It's just, let's pound these bastards into submission. And ultimately it didn't work. We had to go and we had to fight the soldiers and destroy the army ultimately. But anyway, so families from there, and we had family members that died in this horrendous firebombing. He commented he was from Dresden, a city that had been firebombed by Allied, British, and American forces in World War II. I was about to make an excuse about it, which was so stupid that I won't include it here. But what I said was, I'm sorry. And he looked at me rather shocked. And he said, no, who are we to talk? Meaning the Germans. We did so much. After the dinner was over, I took this gentleman aside and I told him, I mean it. I'm really sorry. The firebombing of Dresden was not necessary. We didn't have to do it. I'm so sorry. At this point, I hugged him and kissed his neck, and I'm sure my tears wet his coat, neck, and hair. He cried too, and he said, thank you. It means so much for me to have an American say that. You guys have done so much good for us, but thank you. And we both were profoundly moved. And I immediately put on my sunglasses, as I often do. When I'm lost, I lose it in love in public. Love is so often simply saying, I'm sorry, and washing others' wounds with our tears. He that is greatest among you will be all of our servants, will be the servant of all. After this article was published, I sent it to the gentleman who had shared the experience with me. The following is quoted from his response to me, translated from German. Thank you, Heidi. How beautiful that you, the initiator of the gesture, experienced it equally intensely. It was a moment in which all my arguments and opinions were rendered obsolete, and the only thing that mattered, only one thing mattered, love and compassion. No need for thinking or even talking. That is what I experienced, a really spiritual moment. Initially, as we got to the subject of Dresden, I didn't have a reconciliation in mind at all. Rather, I wanted to argue with you. I wanted to fight and win the argument. I wanted to be in the right. I was even prepared to hurt you as a representative of all Americans, if only for the pain to be recognized. What is that but to carry on the war with words? Your I'm sorry took away all of the aggression. It was the end of a spiral of violence and hurt. We didn't have to talk anymore. We had understood that Liebe und Leben, love and life, come from the very same source. A moment like this is evidence of and the foundation for peaceful solution to all our problems. It requires, however, that we take the first step, regardless of what type of situation it is. Here you took the first step, and for that I'm very grateful. The deep wound that my family had experienced was not only healed, but transformed into love. So there it is. There it is. That is our future as human beings. And that to destroy your enemies, make them your friends. That is me riffing off of Abraham Lincoln. And the story goes right after Lee. The Confederate forces had surrendered at Appomattox. A woman came, there were something get it together, came up to Lincoln and said, what are you going to do with the South? You have to destroy them. There was so much hurt and so much bloodshed. And he said, Madam, I intend to. And I will do that by making them our friends. And I think 3 days later he was assassinated. So he didn't get to do that, but ultimately there it is. And yeah, eventually we have to declare war on war by making everyone our friends. And I'm not saying that it is not a time. There is not a time to fight. Okay, there is a time, and to protect innocence. Okay, good thoughts won't do that, but eventually we have to work through that progression, and that's where it ends up. I think that's it. So anyway, I love you guys, and your practice and your meditation is an expression of your enlightened soul. So let's keep it up and and ask for help from our souls, from our higher power, from God to give us the courage and the discipline to do the inner work, so we can make the interior healing and changes, so that we can make the exterior healing and changings at our planet and our people and all sentient beings, and the water and the trees and the air and the rain and the wind so desperately need. And it has to begin with you and me, with us. So God bless. Love you guys.